The Purdue Boilermakers in 2026 season preview. Purdue is rebuilt once again, but 2026 should tell us whether Barry Odom is actually building something or merely rearranging the roster. He does have opportunities here. Purdue is not investing the most in football, and the Big Ten 24/7 put out a kind of roster tiers chart for the most expensive teams, and Purdue, for according to them, was the least expensive team in both the Big Ten and the SEC, and they were even down there below some of the Big 12 and ACC teams as well, which tells you that Purdue is kind of in wait and see mode with Barry Odom. They don't want to invest too much yet, but they also are 0-18 in Big Ten play the last 2 years. If they do want to start changing the narrative and changing who they are as a program, they're going to need to start investing. And we'll talk about it all here on the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel as we get into the Purdue Boilermakers in 2026. Zach, the Purdue Boilermakers have a number of things that you can talk about going into the season, most of them not good, but there is some hope in a few different ways with a schedule that has a little bit more opportunities, some players that they were able to pull away from some other programs that, people were not necessarily expecting could happen. So what are some of the main storylines that you are looking at for the Purdue Boilermakers in 2026?
Wait, hold on. Before we get to storylines, you're saying that the athletic director who said that you come to Purdue to win championships and not Indiana, you're saying that they don't have good things to talk about?
And there go all our Purdue viewers. Thanks, Zach.
My bad. In all seriousness, I do think the storyline. We love you, DK. By the way, if you're watching this, and to all our viewers, all our Purdue viewers, as well as the guys from the former Boiler Express pod, we love you guys. I think the biggest one is the chase for Big Ten win number one. Like, I think you start building a program with stacking wins. Well, you can't stack wins if you don't have any. So do they get a Big Ten win? I think that's the big storyline for me.
1-11 in 2024, 2-10 this past season. Maybe 3-9, 4-8. Continue building, getting better. We'll see if Barry Odom can do it, but he basically has had to hit the portal reset button the past 2 years. I am very interested in Ryan Brown as well. The numbers are going to tell you that Ryan Brown was awful last season. I don't think he was particularly anemic or awful. Definitely think he struggled throughout the season. I mean, he had a 59% completion percentage, just barely over 2,000 or 53 passing yards, so I shouldn't say barely over 2,000 yards. But he had 9 passing touchdowns, but 10 interceptions. He had a number of fumbles as well, 206 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. He did have 300-yard passing games, so the ceiling occasionally did show up, but they were just so overwhelmed in some of these games that Ryan Brown really just wasn't able to put things together. They did get creative with him a number of times, but if this Purdue team is going to is going to win 3 or more games, you're going to need a very successful season out of Ryan Brown, who limits the decision-making issues with turnovers and stuff like that, and is able to lead his team to multiple, obviously, scoring trips and can lead on the offense.
Yeah, I think the turnover issue in particular is key, because if you look back to even a year ago, it's not like Purdue was awful in every game. Like, they were in it for a while against USC. Like, they lost by 16 to USC, and I think Purdue was leading at one point. They lost by 7 to Minnesota. They lost by 3 to Rutgers. They lost by 5 to Michigan. And so, that's 3 one-possession games. And they hung with USC, who was a really good team a year ago. So, I mean, they hung with Michigan, who was ranked 21 at the time. So, I just think that they've got to play to their strengths, and they can't make mistakes. But it's not like they were completely anemic a year ago. But they shot themselves in the foot a lot. And I think if you want to get not just one Big Ten win, but multiple Big Ten wins, I think you have to do a better job of ball security. You have to do a better job of taking your shots when you can.
Yeah, and they were just out talented multiple times. I mean, that happened as well. Some of it wasn't even the players' fault. It's just the players that they had last season were not as talented as some of the teams that they played for. Just being honest, and I think Purdue fans would admit that as well. But as we look at the offense, there is more talent on this offense than there was last season. Ryan Brown is coming back. We'll see if he can be something. He really is your only option there. You do have Evans Chuba, who's backing him up, the Washington State transfer, but I think Ryan Brown has clearly won the competition over him, so there's no question mark about Ryan Brown there. But Purdue's offensive strength does look like running back is growing and growing. Femi Ijiboy, the Minnesota transfer, he had 441 yards rushing on only 97 carries last season, 4.5 yards per attempt with 3 total touchdowns. Jarrett Gibson comes in. He's a former Texas 4-star running back, high-end recruiting pedigree. And Antonio Harris, he spent some time in the backfield doing some nice things as he had over 300 rushing yards last season as well. But wide receiver, as we talked about with Michigan State, is a problem here for Penn State as well. Bissy Owens does come in after catching 66 passes last season, and he was all Ivy League, so you do have some opportunity there. But a lot of guys, Xavier Townsend from Iowa State, Assad Wasim from Florida Atlantic. I mean, a lot of kind of, guys, no big name guys here or anything, and then not a whole lot of production out of the tight ends either. And then you get an offensive line that the projected group entering camp looks substantially more promising than they were last year. So if these guys can stay healthy, you're looking at some good opportunity there. Zach, when you look at this team, what portion of the offense are you the most confident in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's running back. And it's not nearly, we just did the Michigan State preview too. You're not nearly as high on this group because I think Cam Edwards puts Michigan State over the top. Like, he's going to be a really good player for them. But Ijiboy's no slouch. I thought he played really well for Minnesota a year ago. Jarrett Gibson is a really good, I think, is developing into a really good player, as you mentioned, and Antonio Harris. That's a good room. And while I think they are going to miss they're going to miss Maccabee. They're going to miss Harris. Or no, they have Antonio Harris. Sorry, they're going to miss Maccabee.
Yeah, they got Harris back.
Yeah. Maccabee, they're going to miss Maccabee, but I think they have a good room, both in the running game and I think going out and putting them in pass patterns. So I like that room a lot.
Mm-hmm. I tend to agree. Running back is the group I'm most confident in here, which was the same thing with Michigan State. The other thing that was the same thing with Michigan State is the room that I'm least confident in is the wide receivers. Pretty easily here, Purdue may eventually be substantially better here, but right now we're sitting at week 3 of camp and 16 players are rotating with no clear wide receiver 1. There's too much projection here for me. You're hoping that some of these guys turn into maybe your wide receiver 1 or something like that. Like I said, you do have Bissy Owens, but he's also an FCS transfer coming in from Penn. All Ivy League is great, but I don't think you can rely on an all Ivy League 6'4" target catcher to be your main guy and just be okay with that. So we'll see what happens with the wide receiver room. And I mean, they did have some pretty good wide receivers last year. The only problem is they all just left. So, yep. Maybe you don't need as good of wide receivers if you need other areas. We'll see. But Zach, as we transition, or is that your least confident room too, is wide receiver?
Yeah, I think it is very clearly wide receiver, which I will say, the fact that it's clearly wide receiver and not offensive line, I think does encourage me because I feel I wouldn't say I'm super confident in the offensive line, but I think they're going to be vastly improved from a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think more production there, more experience there should be a good group as long as they do not get injured or anything like that. All right, as we transition over to the defense, Zach, Kevin Kane is the new defensive coordinator. He's inheriting a mess. Purdue finished 2025 around 118th nationally in total defense, 115th in scoring defense, 110th against the run, 127th in passing efficiency defense, and near the bottom in total takeaways. So I'm not interested in whether Purdue suddenly becomes a top 25 defense. My question is just merely, can Purdue become average? And I think that's all Kevin Kane really has to focus on this year. You do have some good linebackers. JoJo Hayden comes over from Illinois. Charles Carrera, he played there. He played there last season. He is going to be their best defender as well. And then I do actually like the potential of some of the interior defensive linemen, Ian Jeffries, T.J. Lindsey, you get Kurt Neal from Illinois. The edge, somebody has to emerge in this area. You do have Elo. He comes over from Army, where in 2024 he had 6.5 sacks. That gives you some good possibilities there. And then the secondary is more experienced than you might expect. Hines with 11 games last year. He had 33 tackles, 9 passes defended, and a pick. Jaden Mangham, the safety, he's a guy that came over that I think Purdue fans should have some excitement about, as he had 30 tackles in 13 games with 5 starts last year. So there's some more opportunity here, but nothing I'm super confident in. Zach, where are you the most confident in?
Charles Correa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. I do think the group of the interior linemen has the most potential in terms of who they have in that room. Like getting Kurt Neal from Illinois, I think Kurt Neal from Wisconsin and then Illinois.
Yep.
Like he's a good player, like legit good player, and you have him, and like right now, at least according to Phil Steele, like he's projected to be in a rotation with other guys. So if that's the case, if he's legit gonna rotate in, I don't know if that's still true or not. I don't know what the news is out of camp. But like if he's rotating in with TJ Lindsey and Ian Jeffries, I think you've got something there. And that's encouraging, because I think if you want to improve a defense and you start with the interior of the defensive line, like that's where you can really cause a lot of disruption, both against the run, but then also rushing the passer from the interior. So I do think that is, to me, that is an encouragement that you at least have a unit there that I think can be disruptive.
Yeah, I'm going to go with linebacker, but I see what you're saying with the interior of the defensive line. I think there is some good stuff to be, fairly excited about there. But the linebacker, to me, with Charles Carrera, seems to be the most promising group. JoJo Hayden, I said as well. Specca, they both bring Big Ten experience. Moore comes over as an FCS transfer, and he has some pretty good FCS tape. I watched a little bit of him, and Kane himself is coaching the linebackers. So typically, when you have a group with experience and your defensive coordinator is coaching that group, that's going to be the group that I look at and typically have the most confidence in. The group I have the least confidence in, and I know I'm answering literally the exact same way for them that I am Michigan State. I don't know why we had to do these back to back, because now everybody, I guess, is just going to think that I copied, pasted those, but it is going to be the pass rush that I'm least confident in with this crew. You do have some guys returning and stuff like that, so there is some opportunity there. Elo, like I said, he had 6.5 sacks at Army in 2024, but even Kevin Kane not Kevin Kane, the defensive line coach for Purdue. I'm blanking on his name right now. I should have wrote it down. But he said ultimately the rotation is going to be decided by production rather than preseason status. And that kind of signals to me a little bit like what we talked about with wide receiver from Michigan State, where it's like, okay, you're not seeing anything in preseason, fall camp, or practice or anything like that. So you're just going to rotate as many guys as you can and see how it goes. I mean, CJ Madden, he played 12 games last year, only recorded a half sack. Breon Ishmael, he played a number of games last year and only had 1 sack as well. So, yeah, we're going to need to see some actual production on the field before we feel confident about this group.
Yeah. I'm going to go a little different. I'm with you that I'm concerned about that. I am also really concerned about the secondary. I know that they can only go up, but I'm not sure they're going to go up much. I have questions about John Slaughter, who did not start at Colorado. Like, he's a senior. He played 11 games, did not start. Don Saunders, who is a senior corner, 12. He played 2 years. His first 2 years at Cal Poly, had 12 starts. Went to Utah, played in 8 games, and had 7 tackles. Like, these are not. I hate to say it this way, because like maybe they'll turn it on and surprise me, but these are not guys who produced or like was able to beat out starters at not great teams. Like, Utah was a decent team a year ago, but like Don Saunders had 7 tackles last season, and that's it. And he was a backup at Utah. John Slaughter was a second stringer at. I mean, he had a lot of playing time at Colorado. But Colorado's bad. Like, I would hope that you're getting starters. So I'm concerned about that. Denson came over from Michigan State. Again, he has experience, but he didn't start. He played 8 games. He had 15 tackles in 2 years. So I just have a lot of questions about this secondary. Mr. Clark, I think there's some intriguing things about him at nickel, but aside from him, I have a lot of questions about the secondary.
That's valid. All right, let's move on over to the schedule. Zach, I mentioned early on that like there is some opportunity here for Purdue. Now they play 11 Power 4 teams, so it's not going to sound like there's a lot of opportunity here, but there is. They start their season against Indiana State. That's going to give them an opportunity to blow out a team and get a little bit of confidence under them. And then they're going to get Wake Forest at home. Then you got to travel at UCLA, and then you get Notre Dame at home, and then at Illinois, Minnesota, and Washington in back-to-back weeks at home. The bye week at Penn State, Maryland, at Iowa, Wisconsin, at Indiana. They do face 5 AP preseason top 25 teams in Notre Dame, Indiana, Washington, Penn State, and Iowa. And three of those 5 ranked teams are on the road. So when I say like there's opportunity here, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense from that angle. But you do get Minnesota at home. You do have Washington coming to you. You do get Maryland at home. You do get Wisconsin at home. Like, these are winnable home games for Purdue. Obviously, Notre Dame I'm not going to include in that category, but I will include Wake Forest in there. This idea that Purdue is just like a lock to go under their win total of 3.5, which is what they're favored to do at minus 158. Dare I say I'm not locked in at them being under that. I do think there's an opportunity here for Purdue if things go right. People forget they almost beat Minnesota last year. Yep. If things go right, this team could have 4 or 5 wins.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this too. Again, I'm not picking this. Washington's not a good road team under Jedd Fish. They just have not.
They improved last year, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, they improved, but they still went on the road and lost to Wisconsin.
Right. That's what I'm saying. They improved. Yeah. I still wouldn't call them good. I'm not arguing with you, but yeah.
And they have to go on the road on a Friday night to Ross-Ade on a short week. I like that's if you want to look at a possible major upset for the Boilermakers, like that's a game that I would star. So I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not picking it, but I'm just looking at that game and saying, can Purdue surprise someone?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be the one where I'm like, okay, it's not Notre Dame. It's certainly not Indiana. Probably not Iowa, but I think Washington, maybe.
If we're looking at floors, I think the most realistic floor here is
1-11.
I was gonna say 2-10, but maybe it is 1-11.
I think it is 1-11.
Darn it.
We're saying realistic floor.
Yeah.
I will say this. I think the roster has gotten better each year under Barry Odom, which isn't saying much because the roster was trash. And that's no offense to those guys who suited up for this program. But what Ryan Walters did to this program was highway robbery. And like he collected a paycheck for 2 years and ran this thing into the ground.
Yeah.
So the reality is there's just a lot of work to do. So on one hand, I can understand why they have waited to commit resources to Barry Odom. At the same time, it is still hamstringing him a bit because you're not able to get the type of players you need to make beating Wake Forest a sure thing. Like that's just it's the limitation of the roster. I think the roster is better though. And I think they are better to the point where I think they can beat Wake Forest. I think they should be favored against Wake Forest. But I don't think that means that they will definitively win that game.
Yeah, if I have to go ceiling in this one, I'm gonna go 5-7. I hate to say it for Purdue fans, but I don't think bowl game is in the cards this season for them. They could possibly, they will beat Indiana State. They could possibly beat Wake Forest. They could possibly beat either Minnesota or Washington, and then get Maryland and Wisconsin both. If that happens, you got 5 wins. So that's my theory for that. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's my theory for that.
I'm going to give a little more optimism. I'll say 6-6 because I think the first 2 games. I think at Illinois is an interesting game, and I think Minnesota at home is an interesting game. Again, they almost beat Minnesota a year ago, and now it's at home. Washington's an interesting game. Again, I'm not picking that. And then Maryland and Wisconsin. And who knows where Wisconsin's going to be. Wisconsin might be like 8-4, or Wisconsin may have fired Fickle by the end of September. So if they fire Fickle, all bets are off. So like I see a pathway to 6-6. I will not pick that, but I see a pathway for it.
Mm-hmm. All right, record expectation.
Oh, I'm gonna. I got to think about this in terms that I need to do my actual picks.
Oh, we're not locking you into this. It's just like what's your vibe right now?
I think I want to pick 4-8. But I think if I am honest, it will probably be 3-9.
I'm going 2-10.
You're no Big Ten wins.
No.
Not even Maryland.
No.
Even if they fire Loxley?
What?
Even if they fire Loxley?
No, Maryland has too much talent. I mean,
like
I said, they have opportunities here. Like, I'm not discounting them completely. I'm just, this program has not given me any reason to believe in them these past 2 years. Almost beating Minnesota is not enough for me to pick you to win multiple Big Ten games. So,
do they fire Barry Odom if they go 2-10?
I mean, you're going to get mad if you go to the store and you only got 50 cents and you try to buy a pack of gum. Like, you're going to get mad at the cashier and you're going to get mad at your wallet because you only got 50 cents. Like, that's my biggest thing with Purdue right now is they're not investing in this program. They're trying to go out and get a few guys here and there, but I think they know what their investment is right now, and I think with a new athletic director, they're going to give them one more year, even if they go 2-10.
I think if they give him another year, they better actually let him cook. Because
there's only so much cooking you can do at Purdue.
Well, but what I mean is like actually give him the resources that he needs. Yeah. Like if you're not gonna, this is probably another episode at some point. If you're not going to give him an opportunity, then just fire him now.
Yeah, but if they do that, then they're gonna have to give the next guy an opportunity. If you fire him, then nobody's going to want to take that job. They're going to say you hired a guy for 2 years, didn't give him any money, and then you fired him? Like, what's the deal? You're not going to get anybody to take that job.
Well, not unless you actually tell people, hey, we are going to beef this thing up.
Well, I'm sure they told Barry Odom the same thing. They didn't do it. They're going to have to show it before they. That's the new thing in college football right now. You're going to have to show it before you fire your coach. Prove that your coach can't do it. You know? And I think Purdue's probably going to get the same advice. We're seeing it with Wisconsin this season. We're seeing it with Maryland this season. They beefed it up, and if they don't get it done, then they're going to go to prospective coaches and say, hey, look, he wasn't able to get it done. We gave him the money. We'll give you the money from day one.
Yeah.
And the coach will actually believe it because they just saw him get the money.
So what I'm saying, though, is like, do you think they'll give Barry Odom the money to try? Or do you think they're gonna withhold it from him?
Year 3, if they plan on firing him, they have to give him the money. Because it's not just about him. It's also about hiring the next coach.
Okay. That's all I was saying.
That is just
better give
complete.
him the money.
That is just complete incompetence from an athletic department if they do not give Barry Odom, I'm not talking like top of the Big Ten type of money. I'm talking like $25 million. Like that still puts you in like the bottom 5 of the Big Ten. But you have to at least try.
Well, I think if you're, and this is going back to the athletic director, if you're going to come out taking shots at the team that just won the national championship, you better be ready to invest like the national champions. Mm-hmm. And I get that Purdue is nowhere near that right now. But like, let's not forget, it wasn't all that long ago that Jeff Brom had this team humming, and in the Big Ten championship game in 2022? Yeah, in 2022, had him in the Big Ten championship game. 2021, they beat Tennessee in a bowl game. That's right, Tennessee. You lost to Purdue. Good job.
But don't you think Jeff Brom saw the writing on the wall, and that's why he left? I mean, he also left because it was Louisville's alma mater, but we know he saw the writing on the wall. He saw his players that he had there, and he saw that he wasn't going to keep getting the players that he wanted because he wasn't seeing the investment.
Right.
Players could, coaches could hang on until 2022, 2023 with the players that they had. But once you got by that, then it really started to expose the programs that were not investing.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I think it's time, and I think that's the point, is that Purdue can be a good program, but you need to invest in it. And shame on the athletic director for coming after Indiana of all places. Like we joked about it at the top, but like shame on him for coming after him if you're not going to invest like the national champions.
All right. You are not going to find a Purdue 2026 season preview that is over 20 minutes long on any other channel. I can guarantee you that. That is not a Purdue football channel or a Purdue basketball channel. I don't even know if they'll go 20 minutes or longer on Purdue channels right now. So give us a like, give us a subscribe, and we appreciate you being here. Check us out as we continue to cover the Big Ten all season long. Sunday recaps of the week, 9 p.m. live here on YouTube Eastern Time, and then Tuesday previews of the weekend, 9 p.m. Eastern Time as we go into that on YouTube live, and then podcasts are posted the next day on Monday and on Wednesday. All right, everybody, thanks for listening and watching to the Big Ten Huddle. We appreciate it. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.